Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga Show. So today we have a special edition as following on from last week when we had the fantasy football edition. But today we're actually going to also add the prediction show as well as of last season. So today I'm joined by Rune again. Yeah, nice to have you on, Rune, again. And unfortunately, Rory isn't going to be with us today because he's otherwise engaged as I was last week. But I'm sure he'll be back again next week. Okay, so we're going to split this show into two parts, but before that, I'm just going to introduce, obviously, Rory's Bully News, Rune's Bully News channel. So yeah, he runs an English-speaking site, which is called Bully News. Yeah, do you want to tell us a bit about that, Rune?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, it's an English-speaking site about the Bundesliga and German football in general, and we pick up a lot of stories from German sources. And some of our stories are about the fantasy game. We also do like injury news and some long reads focus on Americans in the Bundesliga, for instance. So predicted lineups and it's a lot of different articles, but all about the Bundesliga and German football.
Yeah, it's always one of the first things that I check out if I want to know some kind of English news about the Bundesliga as well. I mean, I try to kind of read the German news as well, because obviously I learned German as well. But yeah, definitely if I want to get the English news, it's well worth checking out. A lot of interesting transfer news, rumors in there. And obviously you have your own kind of fantasy football section as well, which is like one of your kind of selling points as well. So yeah, go and check that out. It's well worth it, especially if you're an English Bundesliga fan. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Hey, so into two parts today. So we're going to start by looking at the predictions for this weekend, actually. So we got games on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we're going to go through myself and Rune's predictions as well for what we think the scores are going to be. So yeah, we're going to bring up the section. It's going to be called Petrie and Pundits Predict again, as it was last season, but obviously this time Petrie isn't here. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to come over to you, Rune, for the first game. So yeah, obviously starting on Friday night, we've got RB Leipzig hosting VfB Stuttgart in what looks to be quite a tasty encounter. What do you fancy for that one?
Well, I think it's kind of hard to predict because I had very high expectations for Leipzig going into the first match day. And as we all know, they disappointed against a Mainz side with a lot of absentees. But still, of course, they have a lot of quality in their side. They're coming up against the Stuttgart side, who really impressed in their first game. Also looked very good in the DFB Pokal in the game before that. So I think it will be a difficult game for Leipzig, but obviously they will be eager to bounce back from last season's bad result. Stuttgart are not an easy side to play against. As I said, they have a lot of confidence. So I think probably a game with a lot of goals, predicting a 2-2 draw.
Interesting. Yeah, I've actually gone for a 2-1 home win in this game. I just think I agree that there should be goals and there's definitely going to be chances, but I just think for Leipzig, it's already looking like a bit of a must-win game for them, because obviously they do have title ambitions. They can't afford to be dropping any more points early on, especially against the non-traditional like Big Four or Big Six sides. So they need to get a win there. I think for Jesse Marsch, already under a little bit of pressure after a dreadful performance against a COVID-stricken Mainz side last week. I mean, that was a terrible performance from them, wasn't it? Obviously, Silva needs to get off to a good start. So I'm going to go for a narrow 2-1 home win in this one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So moving on to Saturday, the 3:30 German time kickoffs. We've got Eintracht Frankfurt versus Augsburg. Yeah. What do you think for that one, Rune?
Yeah, I think Frankfurt were another side who disappointed me last week. I know they were up against a tough side in Dortmund, but they had a lot of problems, especially defensively, under new coach Oliver Glasner. But yeah, this week they're facing an Augsburg side who also had a lot of defensive problems and lost 0-4 against Hoffenheim at home. So two sides coming into a game after a really poor performance in the first match day. I think Frankfurt looked better in the second half against Dortmund, and they managed to create a few chances as the second half progressed, also with some of the new signings coming on, Lindstrøm and the new signing from Norway as well. So I'm not really expecting a lot from Augsburg after that painful loss at home to Hoffenheim. So I'll say 2-0 to Frankfurt.
Yeah, I've got a pretty similar opinion to you on this one. Yeah, I've actually gone for 3-0 to Frankfurt. I just think, I mean, Augsburg just look in a state at the minute, don't they? They don't look a good side. Like, obviously, I mean, they lost Marco Richter as well to Hertha Berlin, like, I think last midweek as well. That also isn't going to help them. They look a little bit weak up top. I think Niederlechner is like their only real like proper striker, and I think Vargas blows hot and cold a little bit, doesn't he? I think they're going to be in for a long season myself, so I've actually gone for a 3-0 win for Frankfurt here. I think this is a good chance for Frankfurt to bounce back from a very difficult start in the battering really against Dortmund last week, which was a bit of a baptism of fire, let's be honest, for Oliver Glasner. But I think, yeah, I'm going to go for a comfortable 3-0 win. I think we might start to see a bit more of the Frankfurt from last season in this game. Okay, on to the third fixture. It's actually another interesting game. It's a home specialist Freiburg hosting Borussia Dortmund. So what do you think for this one, Rune?
Yeah, as we talked about before, Dortmund looked very exciting and had a really good game on the Rose in the opener. So I'm expecting this to be an entertaining game as well. Obviously, this game will be different. I think Freiburg will stand back and allow Dortmund to dominate possession and then try to strike on the counter. They kept a clean sheet last time out against Bielefeld, but I thought they were quite lucky actually to not concede. So I'll go for a 3-1 win for Dortmund.
Yeah, I think obviously last season Freiburg famously upset Dortmund in this fixture, and I think Dortmund do look a bit of a different side. Obviously, they're coming in with a bit of confidence under Marco Rose. Like, he made a very, very good start against an admittedly poor Frankfurt last week. But I mean, this is going to be a test. You know, this is the kind of game where I think Dortmund will come into it and think, you know, we've got to be winning these games if we want to win the title. But I think it's not easy to go to the Black Forest Stadium down there in Freiburg and get the win. As we saw last season, they didn't lose a lot of home games. But they tend to be slow starters sometimes, Freiburg. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Dortmund. But I don't think it'll be easy, this one. I think it could be like a last-minute Marco Reus winner or something like that, this one for me. Okay, on to the next Saturday game. So we've got Hertha Berlin hosting Wolfsburg. Well, what's your tip for that one?
Well, I think Hertha struggled a lot in the opener. Also, I read a post-match interview from Paul Dardai, the coach, criticizing Matheus Cunha in like a pretty wild fashion. Said he was strolling and walking around on the pitch. So I think there's been a few problems for them at the start of the season. At the same time, Wolfsburg have had a few problems as well, getting kicked out of the DFB Pokal for using too many substitutes. I don't think they looked that impressive under Van Bommel against Bochum, despite the fact that Bochum had a man sent off in the start of the game. So I'm expecting this to be like a tight affair, a 1-1 draw.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I think Hertha, they're kind of a club that just seem to be in perennial decline sometimes. You know, they spend a lot of money. Obviously, they made a few good signs. Well, I say good signs, but kind of high-profile signings with Serdar coming in from Schalke. But and again, Kevin Prince Boateng, I'm not sure whether he's going to be an inspiring signing in many ways, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously a guy who seems to change club every 6 months, really, doesn't he? Yeah. But for me, I think Wolfsburg, for me, they've got too much quality in this game. I agree with Rune that they didn't really play that well last week. It's going to take a bit of time to acclimatise under the shock appointment of Van Bommel. Obviously, losing Oliver Glasner somewhat surprisingly to Frankfurt, really, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 win here for Wolfsburg. I think, obviously, they can always rely on that good defence with Lacroix. I mean, and obviously Brooks as well in there, the American centre-half. Like, I always think they look very solid defensively. So I'm going to go for a pretty comfortable 2-0 win for the away side Wolfsburg in this one. So staying on the Saturday afternoon games, we've got Bochum, newly promoted Bochum versus shock specialist Mainz this weekend. What do you think for that one?
Well, as I said, Bochum had a man early sent off against Wolfsburg, so it was difficult for them from the start of the game. But I was impressed with how they coped with getting that early red card, actually, and the fact that they didn't concede more than just one goal. Obviously, Mainz were very impressive as well, looked defensively sound and managed to create a lot of chances despite being hit by COVID. This would be a different game for them. with Bochum perhaps standing a bit further back on the pitch. But with Bo Svensson's impressive results so far, I think they will come out on top narrowly with a 1-0 win, the wayside Mainz.
Yeah, I think for me, I was also really, really impressed with Mainz last week. I thought that was the performance of the weekend for any side for me. Obviously, with the fact they were COVID-stricken as well, and some of the young guys that came in, they were absolutely outstanding, I thought. And I think some of the blocks, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but right at the end when it looked like Mukiele was going to equalise, someone came flying in and put his head on the line to block it. I mean, it just proves how far Mainz have come in 12 months, doesn't it, under Bo Svensson? I mean, the guy has just completely revitalised that club, and they look like a side that could push for top half this year, yeah. So for me, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Mainz. I just think they've got too much quality for Bochum. It's the kind of game that Bochum might feel that they kind of need to get a point out of in some ways. They'll feel as though it's possible they can get a point or even scrape a win. But I mean, for me, Mainz have just got a little bit too much quality in there. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 away win for the Mainzers. Yeah. So a bit of a kind of what will be expected to be a basement battle between Greuther Fürth and Arminia Bielefeld. I mean, this really looks like a relegation 6-pointer already, doesn't it, Rune?
Yeah, it does. I mean, Fürth really struggled against Stuttgart in the opener, and I'm not really sure they're ready for the Bundesliga, to be honest, especially not after watching that game. On the other hand, Bielefeld played really well at times, I think, against Freiburg and managed to create plenty of chances. I think that looked pretty strong under Frank Kramer. Turned out to be the right decision to put him in charge. And I think they, after that quite impressive opening performance, I think they will win 2-1 against Fürth.
Yeah, I think for me, I gave a real hiding to Fürth last week. I think in my analysis, I really said it just wasn't good enough, that performance. I mean, obviously credit to Stuttgart, they were great, but I mean, some of the goals they conceded, it looked like Sunday League in the park at times. Do you know what I mean? And I agree with Rune that they looked very short of Bundesliga standard last week. But I think this game, it does represent a chance for them to kind of get off the mark and at least get a point. And I think, while I do think that Bielefeld will have a better season in the long run than Fürth, and I still expect Fürth to really struggle in the long run, I think they might get a 1-1 draw from this game, actually. I just think, I mean, they do create a few chances, and they did last week as well, but defensively, they were abject last week. But I think, obviously, the coach has got to say, you've got to tighten up, and I think they might just scrape a point there. But Bielefeld will probably create quite a few chances in this game. So it might be worth backing the goalkeepers in this one as well for the fantasy football, which we'll come to a little bit later. So, yeah. And obviously another game as well, a Nordrhein-Westfalen derby between Bayer Leverkusen and Borussia Mönchengladbach. What do you think for that one?
Well, I was quite impressed with how Gladbach started against Bayern. I know that Bayern gained more control of the game as it progressed, but as always, I'd say they really fought well against Bayern and deserved to come out with a draw in that game. Leverkusen, on the other hand, a quite average performance under new coach Gerardo Seoane in their opener. I'd say it's a pretty even match, two evenly strong sides. So I'm gonna go for a 1-1 draw in this game.
Yeah, I think for me, I was very impressed actually with Gladbach last week. I thought they were really good against Bayern. I mean, obviously it's a baptism of fire again, starting against the champions, So I think, but obviously Adi Hütter, I'm a big fan of Adi Hütter. I think that some of the football that he played for Frankfurt last year was outstanding. And I saw some of the similar kind of traits in that Gladbach performance last week. I thought Thuram was brilliant when he came on. I thought Plea looked like the kind of form from 2 years ago that he didn't really show last season. The midfield was intense. I thought the likes of Neuhaus were fantastic. And I just think that we've got really good. They're going to have a good season for me, Gladbach. So I've actually gone for a 2-1 away win. This could be a real statement win for Gladbach to catch a Leverkusen side who I'm not quite sure what they're going to kind of turn up this season, to be honest with you, because obviously they lost Leon Bailey. they have a few problems. I mean, they don't really look a great side on paper. I mean, they're relying on Schick, obviously, to kind of replicate his form from the Euros and get them a few goals. But I'm not sure whether they're going to kind of have a good season under a rookie manager as well this season. So a 2-1 away win and a bit of a statement win for Gladbach for me there. Mm-hmm. So moving on to the 2 Sunday games. So we've got Hoffenheim, who had a brilliant win last week, didn't they? I mean, what a win that was, 4-0 at Augsburg, hosting Union Berlin, who themselves got a 4-0 win tonight, actually, in the Europa Conference League away from home in Helsinki, I think it was. Yeah. So what do you think for that one, Rune?
Well, yeah, as you said, Hoffenheim got off to a very good start, and Union grabbed themselves a quite comfortable lead in Finland tonight. But I think the fact that they play tonight might mean that they have a bit of tired legs on Sunday in that away game. They're obviously they've shown they're quite tough side to break down, so it could be tough for Hoffenheim. But I feel like they could come away with a 2-1 win, the home side.
Yeah, I agree. I think basically, while I really rate Union, but I think they're going to take this Conference League very, very seriously. I mean, obviously, it's a very, like, the first ever trip into Europe for Union Berlin, as far as I'm aware. And I think it's a massive occasion for them, obviously, and obviously starting a full team as well tonight. They went strong in Finland. They wanted to make sure they make the group stage of that tournament, and they should do now, that's for sure. But I think, that could potentially take its toll on the legs of the Union players, even this early in the season. So I agree. I think a 2-1 home win for Hoffenheim, but I think it's a good chance for them to build on that fantastic win and get a home win in front of their own fans this weekend. So 2-1 Hoffenheim there for me. Okay, on to the final game, and it's one that looks like a home banker on paper. Bayern Munich versus FC Köln. Do you agree with that, Rune? Do you think it's going to be a home banker?
Yeah, I do. I mean, after that really shaky start against Gladbach, I think they grew into the game and also created plenty of chances. I mean, Lewandowski could have had a hat-trick if Sommer didn't deny him that many times. And I think Bayern looked more like the team we know against Dortmund in the Super Cup on Tuesday. Köln actually looked very impressive as well against Hertha, but an away game at Allianz Arena against Bayern, and they're coming with the confidence from the win over Dortmund. I think Bayern will prove too strong for Köln, so I think it'll be a 4-1 win for the home side.
Yeah, I think quite ironically, I also went for a 4-1 win there for Bayern. Yeah, I just never ever tip Bayern to keep clean sheets. So nowadays, I thought that obviously the signing of Upamecano was obviously a big deal for Bayern, and obviously they have high hopes for him. But I didn't think he looked that great last week, to be honest with you, against Gladbach. That might be a little bit harsh, but he definitely got exploited a few times, and he probably should have given away a penalty really as well, let's be honest, for his foul on Thuram. But he got away with that one, and obviously they came away with the point in the end. But for me, I think it's just going to be too much for FC Cologne, this one. I just think they had a great start. They needed to win that one because you don't want to go into a game against Bayern having lost your first game, do you? And then it's probably going to be 2 defeats in a row. So, I've gone for a comfortable 4-1 win. I think we could see Lewandowski fill his boots in this one, as they say. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that kind of rounds up our predictions for week 2. So obviously the next part of the show is our long-awaited and much kind of hoped for fantasy football review as well. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to start off by looking at last week's results. So Rune, as our fantasy football expert, he's going to tell us who was hot and who was shot. And then we're going to move on as well to kind of some recommendations for substitutes, and maybe some guys that he thinks we should bring in ahead of week 2 coming this weekend. So the way I'm going to do this with who's hot and who's shot, I'm going to go through like the goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and attackers as Rory did last week in the preview. So starting with goalkeepers, Rune, who do you think was hot and who was shot last weekend?
I mean, quite as expected, the hot goalkeepers were some of the more cheap options. Manuel Riemann from Bochum was the highest scoring goalkeeper, made a lot of saves in that game against Wolfsburg. And also, as expected, Ortega, Bielefeld Stefan Ortega, did quite well. Some of the cheaper options proved that they are worth buying. And on the other hand, it also showed that clean sheets alone don't bring you that far. You've got to make some saves, so some of the more expensive goalkeepers didn't deliver. But yeah, that's how it usually is in this game. It's a good idea to save some money on a goalkeeper, because some of the cheaper goalkeepers are often the best options.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, because I was saying to you, Rune, before the kickoff, I had Baumann in my team from Hoffenheim, and I was really excited. I was like, yes, I've got a goalkeeper that kept a clean sheet. And then I was looking on my BL Fantasy app the other day, and I was like, he got almost no points, and I was like, how's that possible? But then Rune explained to me that it's more about making saves, rather than keeping the clean sheet. And it's like, even if a goalkeeper keeps a clean sheet like Baumann did last Saturday against Augsburg, it's not going to get you so many points. So for those of you guys that are used to playing the English fantasy football like myself, the rules are a little bit different as well on the Bundesliga version of it. So it's definitely worth listening to Rune's recommendations and seeing who's worth bringing in a little bit later on. And what about the defenders, Rune? Who do you think had a really good weekend last weekend?
Yeah, first of all, Borna Sousa. I also brought him up last time, and he had an amazing game, also in a fantasy sense, picking up 28 points. His teammate, Marc-Oliver Kempf, actually picked up 4 points more, impressively, scoring twice. But I think Sousa is probably the guy from Stuttgart that you want to keep an eye on going into the rest of the game. He proved a point, I think. Also, Kevin Mbabu, Augsburg's defender, available for around 10 million, picked up 15 points, quite impressive as well. And then I also think Steinisch, Bayern's young right back, is a player that is that's worth keeping an eye on. Cost just 3 million, around 3 million, and picked up 11 points, and he looked nailed on to start again. So he's definitely an option to keep an eye out for in the coming rounds as well.
Yeah, it might even be kind of worth putting any defender who plays against Greuther Fürth in your team, basically. Given the way that they defend set plays and corners, it might well be worth it, to be honest with you. Yeah. But how do the defenders get points, Rune? Because I think a few of our English observers might be a little bit unsure about how the defenders actually get points in the Bundesliga fantasy football. So do you want to explain to us how? Yeah,
well, like the goalkeepers, it's about clean sheets, but it's actually more about other stats, like winning duels. I mentioned Mbabu before, and I think 6 of his 15 points, as far as I remember, came from winning duels alone. So that's quite important, and also setting up shots and taking shots are some of the factors to keep an eye out for. So ideally, you want a player who comes forward. The wing backs are very attractive because they defend and they make a lot of tackles, but they also come forward and set up shots and take shots. So often, unless it's a really a dangerous center back, it's really more worth looking at the wing backs.
Yeah, so take a defender like Lacroix, who many people believe to be one of the best defenders in the Bundesliga. Would you say it's worth having him in a team? Because obviously he's a hardcore centre half. He doesn't really get many goals. Would you say it's worth investing in a player like Lacroix from Wolfsburg?
Last season he was a pretty good player to have because he was so cheap. But now that his price is much higher, I'd say there's probably more value in Mbabu or Rougelong, to be honest. He wins a lot of duels, but he doesn't get that much forward and isn't involved offensively. A player like Otavio last season, who's out injured at the moment, was a really, really good player to have in your fantasy side because he won a lot of duels and most of his points came from that actually. So I'd say, if you own him, then maybe don't sell him until the international break. But looking further forward, I think now that Rougelong and Mbabu are cheaper than Lacroix, they're probably better options, I think.
Yeah, interesting point. Yeah, I've just seen a comment coming in as well from the chat as well from James Martinez. He said, yeah, he picked up Sousa and Roussillon because of the show last week. Yeah, so there you go, guys. You know, we got our experts on fantasy football. Yeah, I think I didn't pick up either of those players last week. So yeah, I'm going to listen to Rune more this week and yeah, heed his advice. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah,
I hope I can live up to the pressure.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a good start last week from you. That's for sure. Yeah, we will be revealing the results a little bit later on about how me and Rune and also who the leader of our obviously our personal channel is as well. Yeah, also Gary Jones also came in as well. He said, yeah, good pick as well. Yeah, I got Roussillon in too after watching the show last week. Big help. Yeah, hopefully the guy's suggestions for this week will come good too. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah. Keep watching and checking out our tips for the, not so much my tips, I think it's more Rune, to be fair. That's for sure, yeah, with fantasy football, yeah. Good, okay, so moving on to the midfielders, who would you say had a good weekend in the midfielders and who wasn't so good?
Yeah, Florian Kainz turned out to be the highest scoring midfielder. Quite a surprise to many people, I think, but yeah, he had a really good game. And ironically, he's coming up against Bayern this week, so Kainz owners will have to decide whether to keep him now that he's in this red-hot form or sell him. Other than him, the Stuttgart players, the Stuttgart midfielders, all did very well because they had a lot of space going forward to create chances and take shots and create assists. So yeah, those were some of the good options. I think Masaya Okugawa from Bielefeld had a quite good game as well. He should have scored, I'd say. He had a lot of chances, but still managed to pick up 9 points. So he might be an option to look out for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And how do the midfielders pick up points? Because I think, again, in England, it's more, I think it's solely due to assists and goals, basically. So people tend to choose the kind of midfielders like your Bruno Fernandes, who obviously get a lot of goals from midfield, and a lot of maybe a Pogba who tends to get assists. But what about in the Bundesliga? Like, what kind of midfielder tends to do better in this one?
I mean, yeah, it's like I said with the defenders, it's about setting up shots and taking shots, but also winning duels. So again, a wingback is actually a good pick. Like a player like Filip Kostic has been really impressive for years in a fantasy sense as well, because he wins duels and he also contributes offensively. But of course, it's a lot about being involved in the game. I mean, not just setting up goals and scoring goals, but also like setting up your teammates and create chances for your teammates. A player like Joshua Kimmich is playing a quite defensive role for Bayern, I'd say, as a number 6, but he is very involved with his passes, sets up a lot of shots, takes set pieces. So he might be a player worth signing anyway, despite not scoring that many goals. And obviously he gets a lot of assists, but despite being a player that is quite defensively oriented, he turns to be a good option because he is so involved in the way Bayern plays. So yeah, it's about finding players who are in possession and who are like a big part of a focal point for the team.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting point because I think in England you avoid the defensive midfielders like the plague, basically. Yeah, defensive midfielders are just a complete waste of the budget because they don't really get assists and they might get like 1 or 2 goals maximum a season. So, but it's quite interesting that in this Bundesliga fantasy football, like they kind of take into account like duels, as you say, tackles. Like is pass rate also included as well, like passing?
No, it's just setting up shots that is included.
Yeah, like pre-assists and things like that. Yeah, but I think it's a bit more developed as well in some of the Premier League ones because it really takes into account like all kind of aspects of the game rather than just the assists, goals, and clean sheets, which I think makes it more interesting in my opinion. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and what about the strikers? Obviously, I mean, we know that the Bundesliga is famous for like great strikers who just score for fun. Like, which ones impress you the most this weekend?
Yeah, of course, I've got to mention Erling Haaland. But yeah, as expected, I think he really showed that he's a must-have option this year. Alongside Lewandowski, you can't really like hit the top positions without having those two, I think. Andrej Kramaric also did very well, but he's been a great option for years as well. But this time showing that he can set up goals and get points that way as well. I think he set up 3 goals for Hoffenheim, so that was quite impressive. Other than that, Marco Reus had a very good start to the season. I'm not really sure it makes sense to double up on Dortmund, but if you don't have Haaland and can't afford him and want to have a differential, then Reus might be worth getting. Jorginho Ruda came on for Hoffenheim and scored and set up a goal. Quite impressively, he managed to pick up 11 points in just 15 minutes or something like that. And he looks set to start this week. So yeah, he looked quite impressive, I'd say, after coming on.
Yeah, that's for sure. Rute, I think myself and Rory really praised him to the high heavens in our review of last weekend. He was brilliant when he came on. I think he only played about 15 minutes, didn't he? And he set up a goal, scored a goal, won a lot of take-ons and things like that. He was outstanding. Yeah, I mean, 11 points in just 15 minutes of play is crazy, really, isn't it? Yeah, and which strikers disappointed you? Because obviously there's quite a few. Most people tend to invest most of the budget in strikers. Which ones kind of let down? Who was shot this weekend, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious players who mentioned is Andre Silva. I think a lot of people had high expectations for him, especially with Mainz being hit by COVID. And he didn't really have the best start to his Leipzig career. I think it's safe to say that. Also, Matthias Cunha, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know if how much you expected from him, but he had a very good Olympics with Brazil, winning and being like the star man of the Olympics triumph. So I'd say that was a very disappointing start from him as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I think probably most people that play the Bundesliga fantasy football, like the must-haves are obviously Lewandowski and Haaland. Like, I'm not even sure if it's possible to win this thing without them two in the team, because they're literally just points machines. I mean, Haaland got an incredible 30 points this weekend. Yeah, I mean, that's just incredible. It really is. Yeah, 30 points in one afternoon. Yeah, that's for sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. So that pretty much rounds up last week's who's hot and who's shot. So we're going to move on to the next section of our fantasy football section now, and this is going to be called Startem or Sitem. So the idea of this section is basically like Rune is going to give us advice on like who to move into your team and who to get rid of if you have them in your team. So obviously this is going to be based on who plays who this weekend, who plays maybe a weaker team, who plays a stronger team. And Rune is going to give us a few tips. So this is the part where you're going to get your tips. Like last week, your winning tips for this week's fantasy football. So let's start with Startem. So Rune, who would you recommend moving into your team this week?
First player I would recommend is Josip Steinisch. I mean, he has looked really impressive on the right side of defense in Bayern's first 2 games of the season. And Benjamin Pavard is out until the international break. So he looks nailed on to start, at least until we get the unlimited transfers. And considering he costs just 3.2 million and looks nailed on to start for Bayern, he's a pretty obvious pick in defense, I'd say. Another team I'm a bit excited about is Mainz. After what they showed last time, they have some pretty interesting low price options. Paul Nebel played attacking midfield position last time out, and I think he did quite well. He's a young guy, haven't played that much, but looked pretty confident on the ball, came close to scoring just after the break, and it looks like he will play again. I read that the Mainz players who are infected or who are in quarantine because of COVID will get tested on Friday, and they will make a decision on whether to include them or not. But in any case, as Bo Svensson said, they're not probably able to play 90 minutes. And I think after what Nebel showed against Leipzig, he could start again, and it cost just 1.1 million. So if you're in for like bargain option in midfield, he might be worth getting. If you have a little more to spend, I'd say Jae-Sung Lee from Mainz as well. He started up top and hit the woodwork in the opening minutes against Leipzig, and he's actually listed as a midfielder and costs just 6 million. And he plays against Bochum, so I'd say he could be a great differential until the international break, especially considering Mainz have Fürth after this game, so they have like the 2 promoted teams coming before the international break, at which point you can transfer them out as you want, because you get unlimited transfers. Also, I'd like to mention Okugawa, as I talked about earlier. I think he did a lot of things right against Freiburg. As I talked about earlier, he's a kind of player who's very involved. He's like the focal point of Bielefeld's midfield, I think, going forward. Offensively, he lacked a bit of ruthlessness in front of goal, but still managed to pick up 9 points. And now he's up against that fifth defense that we talked about earlier. That conceded all those goals against Stuttgart. So at 6 million in midfield, I think he might be worth picking up. So those are like my like differential picks or like bargain picks. Other good options are Kevin Mbabu, as I talked about earlier, picked up 15 points, really impressive. Manuel Riemann could get to make a lot of saves again. He's one of the cheapest starting goalkeepers, and he picked up 17 points last time. So, yeah, he might also be worth a shot, I'd say. Some of the more expensive options, I think, could be worth buying are Giovanni Reina. Looks like to have a quite important role under Marco Rose. I think, yeah, he looked okay so far. He's quite involved. He scored on the opening day. So if you have that much money to spend, go for him, or maybe Lars Stindl. Now that Gladbach have faced Bayern, then he might be worth getting into your side. He's available for 13.2 million, and he scores a lot of goals. And as I said, he's a very important player for Gladbach, very involved as well.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, some really, really good tips. So obviously you got your bargain tips there as well. I'll definitely be looking at some of them, that's for sure. I mean, yeah, this is like top level tipping now. And yeah, I think, yeah, obviously the likes of Lars Stindl, I mean, he is like, you know, he's a goals and assists god really for Gladbach, isn't he? I mean, he's always got a lot of goals and assists. I think last season he even got into double figures for both, despite Gladbach not really having that good of a season. So yeah, and he's always involved, isn't he? He's like, especially in that attacking midfield role, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and what kind of players would you not recommend? So with Situm, I would say, like, what players who most people might have in their team would you recommend dropping this weekend?
I'd say if you invested in Frankfurt and Leipzig, it's probably worth keeping those assets for this week. I think they deserve another shot, especially if you picked up the likes of Kostic or Boré up front. They're facing Augsburg this time, so maybe give them another round to see how they perform this week. And if they disappoint again, then you might look into getting them out of your team. And I'd say the same about Leipzig. I mean, they have so much quality in their side, and they got to do better than they did last week. So I'd recommend keeping the likes of Silva and Angelino. About who to sell, Da Costa, I actually talked about Danny Da Costa last week and brought him up as a nice option. And yeah, he didn't have the best opening game, and it looks like he could be dropped for Erik Durm, so he might be a player to transfer out this week. I'd consider that myself. He's in my own side, actually. Obviously, the players from Köln, as we talked about earlier, the likes of Thielmann and Kainz, did very well in the first round, but now they're up against Bayern, and you have to look at whether it's really worth it keeping them, because if they don't perform this week, then they only have one other match to like show what they can do before the unlimited transfer break. So yeah, that's a tough decision to make there. I'll probably sell players from Köln now that they have this really tough game coming up. I'd also probably sell field players. We talked a bit about Julian Green last week, but what he showed, I mean, yeah, as I said, I don't think they look quite ready for the Bundesliga. And if you want to buy a player in the same price category as Julian Green, you can get other options that are better, in my opinion, such as Okugawa or Lee from Mainz. Also with Augsburg, I would probably drop my Augsburg players. They looked really poor last week, and they have a quite difficult schedule until the international break. This week they have Frankfurt away, and then they have Leverkusen at home, and I don't really see them picking up a lot of points in those two games. So it's probably time to get rid of, for example, Andre Hahn if you picked him up for let's say one.
Yeah, definitely. I think some good tips in there as well. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Julian Green was a bit of a bargain, but like given what Fürth showed last week, I mean, Yeah, you're going to be looking at not very many points, and definitely, I would add in there, definitely avoid any foot defenders in there. Yeah, that's for sure. And I'd add the goalkeeper, and maybe the goalkeeper actually, because despite conceding 5 goals last week, he made 12 saves. Incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? I mean, I think I said to Rory on the review show, I don't think I've ever seen a team concede 17 shots on target in a game in the Bundesliga before, and that includes Schalke of last season, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it was a truly disastrous debut for them. But yeah, as a Nuremberg fan as well, I have to, I always have to rub that in a little bit as well, as Nuremberg's big rivals, Greuther Fürth as well. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. And what about any other little tips as well, Rune? Like, because I think you were saying to me before about the change in the captains and things like, maybe some of our viewers are not aware of some of these little things as well. Would you give any other little small tips as well ahead of this weekend?
Yeah, as we talked a bit about last week, you can change your captain during match day. So, say last week, if you captained Lewandowski for the Friday game, then you could switch your captaincy to Haaland for the Saturday game if you wanted to, and then in principle you could switch it to Silva as well if Haaland hadn't performed. So yeah, it's about like getting players in who play at different times during the week. I mean, for example, it's a quite big advantage to have Leipzig players in your squad because they play on Friday night. It's a standalone fixture, and you can put your captains on the field, and if they don't perform, then switch the captaincy and get them out of the pitch again. I mean, if you put in a player who plays the last game of the round on Sunday, for example, then if he doesn't perform, then there's really nothing you can do. You don't have the option of putting another player in his place. So that Friday night game is usually quite important, and it's good to have players that are involved in that game. I don't know if I have that many other tips. It's all about like keep an eye on your team during the weekend, and like making a decision on whether to change the captaincy and whether to switch in a player for another one. As I said, make sure to have players who play on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so you can make those adjustments during the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And how many hours like before the kickoff on the Saturdays? Because obviously on the Saturdays is when most of the fixtures are. Like, how many hours before the game can you substitute the players then?
I think you can do it just until the game starts, and it's the same with the Friday night game. Also, that's a very good tip actually, to the fact that you can see the lineups before making your transfers. I always like wait and make my transfers before checking out the lineups for the Friday night game, because you might be surprised that suddenly a player got dropped that you didn't expect, or something unexpected happens. For example, last week, if you kept an eye on Bayern's lineup, then you would notice that Steinisch was in the lineup, and you would be able to bring him in. Maybe you didn't expect him to start, and then you suddenly had the option because you were able to see the lineup. So I'd say hold your transfers until the very last moment on Friday.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's definitely worth checking that team news as well, which you can actually see a lot of that over on the Bully News as well, actually. I think you specialize in team news and things like that from like some of the German, obviously the German kind of outlets are like quite difficult to understand for the English. So you kind of translate some of them and make your own articles based. So that it's very, very useful also for fantasy football as well, but also just if you're interested in the Bundesliga in general, I think. Also for bettors as well, like I myself am a bit of a gambling man as well. So, you need to know if a team is struck by COVID or if they've got an injury crisis or something like that. And before you go and waste a load of money. So that's for sure. Yeah, but it's definitely well worth checking out as well. But
thanks.
Thanks a lot for your advice. I mean, I've also taken a lot of interesting tips from that as well, and I hope you guys watching as well have also. So remember, guys, if you're interested in joining our league, so remember we also have a joint league with Bully News and Over the Bar as well. So I'm going to put that at the bottom. So if you search that on the Bundesliga app, So you can download the Bundesliga app, first of all, the fantasy football app, and then you can search for our league, which is Bully News and Over the Bar. And then you can just join the league and we will be happy to have you in there. We actually have at the moment, just checking, 332 members at the moment, which is a good number. I think we got about 50 or so on the back of the show last week, which was fantastic. You can get another 50, that's even better. So yeah, obviously the big scores on the doors before we finish the episode, the one you've all been waiting for. Let's find out how me and Rune have actually been doing over the first week of matches. So yeah, let's start with me. Yeah, I'm actually in 165th position with 110 points. Yeah, so that's obviously with 332 position people, it's exactly halfway down. Yeah, I'm relatively pleased with it though, because as Rune said, like, it takes a bit of time to get used to the Bundesliga fantasy football. It's a little bit different, but to be honest, when I saw the results on Saturday and saw the games, I was thinking I was going to be doing even better, to be honest, because I had the likes of Haaland in there, I had Lacroix, who kept a clean sheet, Baumann from Hoffenheim, the goalkeeper, who kept a clean sheet. But yeah, it wasn't to be, but I'll take that. I'll take 110 points for the first week. Although it is largely thanks to Haaland, who got me like 45 of those points because I had him as my captain as well. And yeah, obviously over to you, Rune. I mean, you did really, really well, actually. Yeah, you're actually in. Do you want to introduce how you did?
Yeah, I'm in 8th position in our league, and I picked up 179 points. So yeah, I was quite pleased with that. Unfortunately, Leipzig didn't perform on Sunday. If they had, then I would probably have done even better. But yeah, I can't really be disappointed with that start. So it's all about like. Yeah, keep doing the same thing and like moving further up, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that gives you even more reason to follow Rune's tips. Yeah, after seeing that he's in 8th out of 332 people. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. Thanks. It's been a pleasure to hear your weekly advice for this week. I'm definitely going to be taking some of that advice, that's for sure, based on my last week's performance. Okay, yeah. So again, if you want to join, then remember, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, Bully News and Over the Bar. Check out our league. Yeah, it'd be great if we could get at least 350 members by next week's show. 400 would be even better, you know. But if you enjoy what we do, then join the league and play along with us. So yeah, so that's pretty much everything for tonight. Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of round up the show, which is obviously, so if you want to check out a little bit more of what we do here at Over the Bar, it's you can check out our Twitter account, which is at Over the Bar FB. You can see just about everything that we produce on the show on that. But remember, we also have a League One and League Two show as well nowadays with Dave. So yeah, check that out. Yeah, I know a lot of you guys, a lot of our observers are lower league English football fans as well. Me, myself, as well as a Wigan fan too, of course. So yeah, remember to check that out. Also, otbfootball.net as well. That's like our central piece as well. So remember to check that out. We put a lot of time into to kind of following that. And yeah, obviously, again, remember to check out Bully News as well. The website is fantastic for all your football news. Yeah. Okay, so, well, it was great having you on again, Rune, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be here. And I look forward to next week as well.
Yeah. See you again, guys.
Yeah. Bye.